boy. Roman is the biggest bad guy character in professional wrestling.
When's the last time you got laid?
French Toast is the exchange student that you have like a 3-week affair with.
Like, we can see that you don't have pants on.
Can we tell the truth about Dusty sooner or later?
Less people wanted that than are currently watching our stream.
And you know Vince, and you still think, are these true? It's like...
Welcome to the Mark It Down podcast.
Hello, everybody, and as Prince Nana said, this is the Mark It Down podcast. I'm James Gisanti. That's Matt Cascone, and Producer Boy is here, kinda, in a way. I don't know why he's on screen, but there you go. Tonight, it is Friday night. You know what that means. We're not covering SmackDown. We're covering TNA No Surrender. I thought this was a very fun pay-per-view. I thought this was a very informative pay-per-view because this is the first event following the dismissal, following the departure of former President Scott D'Amore. We've all seen the reactions from the talent. We've all seen the reactions online from the fans. This has been a pretty universally disliked move backstage. But Hated, yeah.
Hated move.
Yep, Matt Cascone is right. But this is entertainment. This is show business, and the show must go on. Hello, Kevin. Yes, TNA did have a pay-per-view tonight, and it was a good one. This was one of their smaller pay-per-views. This was one of their Impact Plus events, not one of the big four. So this is something you could have watched for very cheap on YouTube, or if you were like me and Matt, on Fight TV. TNA does a lot of these smaller events for pretty cheap. In 2 weeks, we'll have another one. And I believe 2 weeks after that, we'll have a bigger pay-per-view. So they have a good way of making the time in between TV still feel important without actually hitting a major pay-per-view. Tonight's No Surrender show started with a bang, really. It started with a number one contenders match as Frankie Kazarian took on Eric Young. Two TNA original. Yeah, all right. Before we get into the details of this, Matt, this is the second time you've pointed to that drink. Did you feel that you needed it to get through the pay-per-view?
No, not at all. I only had I had one before the pay-per-view and one during, and now I'm having my third. So it's like they've been pretty spacious in between. I did miss this match, so you're gonna have to cover this one completely.
I think I can do it without you. I obviously will miss you. Obviously, you know, I don't feel as protected as a tag team. As tag teams go, I feel like I'm carrying the weight. We'll talk about that backstage, you know, professionally. You know, we'll deal with that. But
I'll get the hot tag in after this match, and then we'll go from there, and we'll get the W.
The W, understandable. You didn't really miss too much with this matchup. Nothing against Frankie Kazarian, who I said to you before we started tonight. I think he looks younger now, and I think he looks more fiery now than he did 5 years ago. I think Kazarian is definitely finding himself in TNA, and I think this heel run is exactly what the doctor ordered for him. And Eric Young is always old reliable. I would actually like to take a second to talk about Eric Young before we really get into the matchup. As it was shown online, some videos got out of the entire TNA roster on stage prior to the show's beginning, where Eric discussed these changes that are going on backstage, talking about all the backstage rumblings, and he essentially did his best to be the godfather of TNA and to show us that everything is going to be okay. TNA forever, baby, as he put it. Nope, I may have added the baby. But go check out that video. It should be on X. It should be wherever on Reddit, wherever you want to look up stuff. But I do appreciate the talent, whether or not it was forced or not, doing their best to reassure the fans who are definitely worked up about these changes. Rightfully so in some ways, and a little maybe overboard in other ways. But yeah, I think if there's anybody who's going to do a good job of keeping us calm, I do think it's Eric Young. Did you happen to see that message that he gave? Did you happen to see that addressal?
No, I saw that he opened up hard to kill, so I got the vibe that like he's the vet that they have that's going to be like driving the ship forward, at least from a maybe not a PR, but like from like a television aspect, like who's on TV. It's going to be him.
I think he's one of those guys that you can depend on to be the veteran, to be the guy to tell us everything's all right. Someone else we saw do that online this week was Alex Shelley, the former TNA/Impact World Champion.
I saw that.
Kevin asks, Matt, are they forcing you to watch TNA? Blink once for yes, twice for no. No blinking at all. We'll never know. He's always keeping us guessing here at the Mark It Down podcast. He just blinked like 50 times behind those hands, guys. But the match itself was fine. Kazarian demanded to be introduced as the king of TNA. It was a pretty back and forth match for most of it. It didn't go particularly long. It wasn't a slobber knocker by any stretch. But the match ended as Eric Young tried for a pile driver, but Kazarian hits the fade to black. When he didn't get the 1, 2, 3, but only a 2 count, he starts to then argue with the referee, and Young then plants him with a crucifix for the 1, 2, 3 quick pin. Not fair to say a quick pin, but definitely a sneaky one. That's where you get a veteran like Eric Young who knows how to work the ring and knows how to work his opponent when they're not paying attention. After the match, Eric Young now being crowned the #1 contender for the TNA World Championship, Kazarian was not happy. And he spent what felt like an eternity just obliterating the referee.
Was it a male ref?
It was a male referee. It was a male. I think it would have been a little too much to see him just wailing on a female referee. But he's just beating down on this referee. And then it takes the entire referee locker room and some security to get in between Kazarian and the downed ref. Yes, 2 pieces real. In Ali, we trust. We will get to him as we get to the main event a little bit later. But he was very exciting in this TNA debut. But yeah, not a good night to be a referee. Not a good night to be somebody working in TNA that isn't a wrestler. We'll get a little bit more into that as we get down the card. But brutal showing from Kazarian. I think it says something that I think the after match was better than the actual match. I said after match on purpose, but I'll stick with aftermath. I thought what came after was a little more entertaining than what we got during the match itself, which was fine. I was kind of explaining this to you before. I have no issue with Frankie Kazarian. I have no issue with Eric Young. I think they're obviously 2 very strong talents. But in 2024, we kind of know what a match between Frankie Kazarian and Eric Young is going to look like. We didn't really get any surprises. We didn't get any big, oh my God moments. It was a pretty standard and safe matchup.
It's like what I said. They're not having a career renaissance yet. Yeah. So we'll see. Always happy to see them. I kind of wish I had seen the match. And I think going forward, having them in the company is a good thing. We'll see where it goes.
One of the things they did note with this matchup is that Eric Young is, of course, a former world champion in the company, and Frankie Kazarian is, of course, not. A world championship has evaded Frankie pretty much his entire career. And now that he's really got his sights set on it, I am interested to see where his character goes from here, because realistically, the goal should not change that much for Frankie. He might not be the #1 contender for the next bout, but he's definitely going to want a shot in the future. So I hope this bit with beating up the referee doesn't distract too much from his journey. But I do like the nuance of this was a guy who, even just last week, when I was describing his heel turn, there wasn't that much of a difference with this guy. His priorities were still the same. He still loved TNA. He still wanted to represent TNA, and he still wanted to be TNA champion. He just didn't really care so much about upsetting anybody. He didn't care if he had support from the fans. But this is a much more aggressive Kazarian. So let's see if they're able to pull on that thread a little bit further as they move along.
Hopefully it won't end up with a ref angle, because those tend not to be fun. I also like to say I like the TNA, these pay-per-views. It's not uncommon for them to do #1 contender matches.
Yes, I love that. I do too. Well said. Well said. And yeah, you see, we're talking over. Danny got in my head. We're talking over each other, and that's my fault. I love number one contenders matches. I think it's something that both of the big companies are missing. I know AEW tends to love the tournaments, and I'm cool with the tournaments. We all did get a little burnt out with the tournaments when it came to AEW for a while, but personally, I do love the ranking system, and I think that the ranking system will lend itself to potentially having official or at least unofficial number one contenders matches. So I'm down for that. But yes, that is something WWE I would love to see re-implemented. When I grew up, I remember seeing pay-per-views have number one contender matches with top talent. Like there was one pay-per-view, I'm dating myself here, but we had, I remember growing up and I was just like, wow, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Undertaker in a number one contenders match. That means like these two guys really want to be champion and they're the best that aren't champion. I love that concept. As simple as it is, I love it. So I agree with you. I was really happy that this was a number one contenders match and not just a match for the sake of matches. So great point there, Matt. Moving on. We're going to talk about an actual championship match, as we had match 3 of 3 for the TNA World Tag Team Championship, as Bullet Club's ABC, Ace Austin, and Chris Bay defend against the Grizzled Young Veterans. But I think you do have a nickname for them, Matt?
They're not the Grizzled Young Veterans. They're the Grumpy Old Men.
They really come across that way, don't they?
Yes.
Gotta tell you, I'm watching these guys. I've been very upfront here on the pod. I'm not too familiar with GYV. I didn't really watch them in NXT. They were really grinding their teeth at a time where I wasn't really watching NXT. And I just gotta wonder, why are they so angry?
Old man yells at cloud.
Yeah, right?
I'm probably a little more familiar with them than you are. And they're not bad. It's kind of funny. Like, I was into Zach Gibson before he went to WWE. Like, I was a little bit familiar with him and I liked him. And then he came to NXT and I'm like, oh, okay, very cool. And he came in hot. And then someone told me that they started teaming up and then they were the tag team champions in NXT UK. And I was like, what? That's so random. And it's just shocking that they stayed together all this time through, I think, 2 really bad gimmick changes in NXT. And they're good. And I think we saw it here tonight. I think you'll go into the match a little bit more, and I'll bounce off of you on that.
Well, I did want to ask, because this was, yes, the first match that you actually got to watch live as it was happening. And you seem impressed by some of the moveset that GYV did bring out. You know, they hit, and we'll get into it later, but they hit a devastating doomsday device to the outside onto Ace Austin. And they just have, in my opinion, they do have very good tag chemistry. And obviously, I think they recognize it too, which is why they're staying as a package, even leaving WWE. Different company. We don't shame here. We don't kink shame here at the Market Down podcast. Okay. I know you're still getting your feet wet here. You're still getting acclimated, but no shame here. But I've only ever known these guys as a tag team. And I think, and I've been saying this week in and week out on Impact, that they bring an intensity to the tag team division that I'm not too familiar with in TNA. TNA's tag teams tend to be very fast-paced, high-octane guys. And I don't want to say that they wrestle a slow match, because that's not the point. That's not what I'm trying to get across. But they definitely wrestle a grittier style. Like, you know what they love to say? Grit your teeth when you get in the ring with the GYV. But they definitely bring a different energy to this tag team division. And I think it's needed. I don't think that they're signed to TNA yet. But if I am TNA, I would try to gobble them up.
I think after this match tonight, definitely sign them. They're good hands. I mean,
those are the other guys. The good hands are 2 other guys in TNA.
Oh yeah, I thought I heard that earlier, and I'm like, did they mean the Good Brothers? And then now I was just thinking about them now. I'm like, what was their name again? The Good Fellas. I don't know about that tag team. We'll get to them. But the GYV, definitely that through the middle rope tope to the doomsday device. If they do that, like, you know, every other match or every match, that's a that's something that people can always look forward to. And then what else did they hit that really impressed me? Give me a sec. They did the coast to coast, where Gibson was kind of holding the dude, and then the other guy, I was about to say Joseph Connors, who kind of looks like, God, what's Zach Gibson's tag team partner name? It's
Gibson's tag team partner name is God, it's killing me now. Looking unprofessional here, Matt asking me a question. I'm not
sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. But regardless,
that was the problem. When NXT, when they did that whole second tournament, I always got Joseph Connors and the guy in GYV confused because they both looked the same.
James Drake.
Thank you. I knew it started with a J, and all I could think of was Joseph. But James Drake did the coast to coast. I mean, that was a really cool move right there, and the whole match was pretty fluid. Yeah, and love to see it. And apparently this was the third match in their series. So, if anyone's watching, if you saw the other two matches, tell us what you think.
I mean, I've been following obviously every week. But first in the comments, Senor Azazel, they wrestle a more throwback style, hard nosed, just throwing haymakers. Yeah, they are brawlers. They are brawlers, and they're cheaters. We saw some Scarf action. This isn't the first time that they've done that, and they're not afraid to get dirty. They're not afraid to get down and dirty. And I think it really appeals to their style. The best of 3 series, the Grizzled Young Vets took the first match, and then the ABC took the second match, forcing this third match. And they had attacked Ace Austin after the first match, going into the second match, giving him a bad knee. And that was definitely something they focused on a little bit tonight. They definitely focused on it in the second match. And they did their best to isolate Ace Austin before switching gears and isolating Chris Bay. The ending coming after, as we talked about, as we hyped up, GYV hitting that Doomsday device on Austin onto the floor. Bay is then all alone in the ring and stands off with GYV. Bay then goes and hits a Famouser onto Gibson, but Gibson then hits a corner lung blower. This sets up Drake to go coast to coast with the drop kick. He goes for the pinfall, but only gets 2, and the crowd is blown away at that reaction, at that event unfolding. Senor Azazel saying, I would love to see them run this back, but not too soon. Maybe make it a best out of 5 match. Ooh, that's a bold claim, Senor. I don't know. A lot of audiences today aren't crazy about best of series. I noticed that when it came to the Elite versus Death Triangle. Or no, not Death Triangle. Yeah, it was Death Triangle.
Yeah, Death Triangle. Yeah,
it was Death Triangle. And I'm a big fan of them. I grew up on them. I grew up with John Cena versus Booker T. And, of course, Booker T versus Redacted. For the U.S. title.
Scared me there.
Yeah, but I wouldn't mind seeing them go at it again, but I would like to see some new talent going against the ABC in the meantime. Like you said, maybe not too soon, but very interesting concept. Good comment.
Could circle back to that for sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
Absolutely.
We've got time.
Yeah. But as they're setting up to finish off Bay, Ace Austin shoves Drake off the top, and Bay gets off of Gibson's shoulders. Ace then chokes Gibson with the scarf. Payback's a bitch. As the ref is checking on Drake, and then they hit a double Art of Finesse onto GYV before Austin hits the fold onto Gibson for the 1-2-3. I love this finish. I'm going to tell you now, Matt, I'm not sure how familiar you are with my love for them, but I am a huge mark for Ace Austin and Chris Bay. I think these are two guys that individually could be the faces of TNA as single stars. And for a tag team that was essentially thrown together a little over a year ago at this point, I think their chemistry is insane. They have very fluid tag team moves. They have a very quick pace that matches one another. And they're just cool, in my opinion. I think they really give off that cool, what I think of Bullet Club, they feel more like Bullet Club than what New Japan is offering me with Bullet Club right now. So I'm a big fan of ABC.
Yeah, like I've kind of always followed TNA, even if I'm not watching it. So like Ace Austin has definitely been on my radar for years. I know he was like a big deal in the X division, and I think Chris Bay is fairly newer. And I believe I caught them. I went to a Jonah's been, sorry, not Jonah, but like Bronson Reed, he's been back in WWE 1 or 2 years now.
About a little under a year, I'd say, or we're at a year mark, give or take.
Okay, so then I went to the TNA show just over a year ago. It was his last show. It was Jonah versus PCO, and that was a great show. And I believe, I'm positive, Ace Austin and Chris Bay were on the show, and everyone was great that day. Like, everyone impressed me. So, like, they impressed tonight, they impressed then. Nothing's changed. They just keep getting better.
In my opinion, Ace Austin kind of helped carry TNA through the pandemic. He was one of their more reliable stars during that time. And Bay really found himself with Bullet Club. He was one of Jay White's recruits into Bullet Club, a TNA recruit. And I thought he always carried himself like a star. I think he always carried himself with the swagger of a champion, but these two together just feel like two halves of a piece. And that's saying something when, again, I want to reiterate, I think either of these men could be TNA world champion at some point in the future. So I think these are two stars that are one day for TNA, because Ace Austin is only 26 years old. He is very young, and I don't think he's anywhere close to having peaked yet. And Chris Bay is only 28. These are two young guys who, I'm saying, I think they could be the 1A, 1B of TNA in the future. But going to the comments, we have Senor Azazel again saying the problem is they don't have a lot of tag team guys, so they don't have much to work with. I think the Good Hands are an underrated tag team. They were makeshift tag team as well. I do agree with your point. I just want to get to the next one. But they've meshed well since. Yes, I do agree with that. But going back to this, yes, I think one of the things that we're seeing, and we're going to get into this as we get into the main event, as we get into the world title picture, into a couple of other things. TNA has a very strong core. TNA has a very strong core roster. Guys that are entertaining in their own right. Guys that are reliable for the company. Guys that I'm happy to watch on a weekly basis. But that core isn't as big as it should be. And instead of having a larger roster full of guys that you could sort of pull in, take out, switch out, take this, take that, we're seeing a lot of guys coming in. Like I said, the Grizzled Young Vets are not signed to TNA as far as I'm aware. I believe that they're a free agent team that were working with TNA for the last 2 months or so, maybe 3. So that is a problem, because where do you go from here? We're seeing this in the main event as Mustafa Ali took on Chris Sabin for the X Division Championship. As far as I know, Ali isn't signed to TNA yet. He's still a free agent, and you have a free agent main eventing your show. Now, granted, Ali is a hell of a talent, and I am so happy he got his first pay-per-view main event to my knowledge, or a first singles pay-per-view main event to my knowledge. But it speaks to where TNA is right now with depth, something that hopefully they work on with this new president coming in and this new emphasis on trying to lift them up. Hopefully they're able to actually sign some names sooner than later.
Yeah, I would say, like, I think it's almost 5 years now, people have been telling me TNA's improved, or it was Impact, but it's improved, it's worth watching. And I'm like, 1, it's hard to find where to watch it. And 2, the big one for me was it's hard to get invested when they can't seem to sign anybody longer than like a year. So, and I'm hoping that, these changes that they're making, and that Anthem says they want to, Anthem basically said they want to invest more into TNA. I hope, and I'm going to say a few times tonight where I would like to see improvements. Number 1, I would like to see people under contract longer so that we can get invested, they can get invested.
I do agree. I want to address that in a second, but first let's address Senor Azazel's comment. This is why I don't like them putting belts on guys that aren't contracted, because what do you do if they get scooped up? That's definitely something we've seen TNA do in the past, particularly more in the LOL TNA era or the mid era of Impact. It's not something I'm really too worried about being a problem moving forward with TNA, but it is something that we're going to need to figure out. To your point, though, Matt, I want to just address a couple of things. For everybody wondering, TNA is not as confusing to watch as you'd imagine. Do you got something on your end? I'm hearing a little whistle on your side.
Sorry, that's it's my radiator. I'll just go, mute for just a minute.
You're good.
Go.
You're good. TNA is on Access TV. So I know that's not a station that a lot of households have, but Access TV on Thursday nights. If you don't have Access TV, like I don't have Access TV. I watch TNA. I watch Impact every Thursday on YouTube. I watch it on. What's up, guys? Thank you for joining. Are we brothers from different mothers? Definitely from different mothers, but the love is there. It's on. You could watch it on YouTube. They have different tiers of memberships. You could join for the, I believe, $1 a month tier, and you get every episode of Impact. So that's 4 to 5 episodes of Impact every month. Watching for $1. That's cheaper than pretty much any other company is going to offer you for their weekly TV. If you pay for the $5 a month tier, you also get these premium live events like tonight's No Surrender. So not that hard. Not that, and I know it was confusing for a long time. I don't want you to think I'm calling you out on this because it took me a while to get there. But I do want to make it clear to everyone watching, there are multiple platforms to watch TNA if you're interested. So please give them a look. And then going into TNA's improvement over the years, I undoubtedly can say TNA has improved greatly since the LOL TNA days of the early 2010s. These last few years of Impact, Scott D'Amore has put a lot of love and a lot of effort into boosting this company back up. He put his blood, sweat, and tears, and as did the wrestlers. I don't want. No, Eric, I am not calling him out.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
I know he's a stirrer. He likes to stir the pot. But they've put the wrestlers, the people backstage, Scott D'Amore, they've put a lot of love, they've put a lot of effort into revitalizing this brand. You have your core guys, you have your Josh Alexanders, you have your Ace Austins, Chris Bays, your Jordan Graces. Before she just left, she was there for a while putting in the work. Deonna Purrazzo. There are lots of talent. Brian Myers, Moose. I'm ashamed to have not said Moose. Yeah, Moose, Eddie Edwards. So much talent have really been dedicating themselves to making TNA a reputable brand.
And Eddie Edwards, he was the guy that was like holding it down during like some of their not great times. He was putting in the work.
He was trying to carry that company on his back when in a time where fans didn't want to. But a lot of fans wanted to see TNA finally die. And that's, I get it. There were a lot of dark times. There were a lot of reasons to not root for TNA. But the people that were there busting their humps, they've gotten us to this point where TNA is a viable third brand. Not on the same equal level as WWE or AEW, but an alternative that's actually an alternative. They are their own thing. They're not trying to be anything else. Yes, we did see that partnership with WWE at the Royal Rumble, but I don't think TNA sacrificed anything. They didn't sacrifice any of their identity for that spot. As opposed to, and I'm not a big believer in this, I know certain people weren't thrilled with the AEW TNA relationship. And I think it's kind of telling that we haven't seen AEW and TNA interact in any meaningful way at this point in years. But all that said, TNA, I think, has really been putting in the work. And despite not having a very deep roster, I view it as like my local indie that is going to have their regular guys on a monthly basis. They're also going to have a revolving door of talent that you can expect to come back in and come back out. But the major storylines are going to focus on the guys that are there regularly. So I think it's the best of both worlds, because even though I am wanting grizzled young veterans to sign to TNA, I'm just happy we got them in this best of 3 series. I thought it brought out the best of the ABC. I thought it brought out a lot in the tag team division as a whole. Mustafa Ali. I don't know if Ali is going to stick around, but I'm not complaining that I have Ali in the Impact Zone. So it's all about the management. It's all about how they book these guys that may or may not stick around. So maybe not throw a title on every guy who's just here for a cup of coffee, but know when to strike while the iron's hot.
I want to touch on one more thing Senor said. I mean, I'm not a booker. I don't know, but I know for sure. But I think the idea is that when you get a guy come in for like a certain number, like, you know, he's not signed to a full-time contract, he's there part-time, and you put a title on him, it's like they have it planned out. Like, you're going to be here for X amount of days, you're going to win the title here, and then you're going to lose it here, and everyone's in agreement, and like, you know, the money gets paid and everybody does the job. And that's the way, in theory, it's supposed to happen. It doesn't always work out that way, and I understand why there's a little bit of a concern, but it's also not the wild, wild west anymore.
Yeah. Well, to give you an example, actually, to support what we're talking about, they did a great job, in my opinion, with Lio Rush. Lio Rush was a talent. We all know Lio Rush. We all love Lio. He's a guy who's bounced around professional wrestling, WWE, AEW, New Japan, TNA now. He won the X Division Championship from Chris Sabin, and then lost the title back to Sabin after a very intense feud. A very intense feud in which Rush got involved with multiple storylines. He got involved with Bully Ray. He got involved with Chris Sabin. He got involved with Brian Myers. He got involved with a lot of different talent. And I think that's the best way to deal with a guy who you recognize has something to offer, but isn't going to sign the contract. I think that A to Z, 1, 2, 3 booking can work, but again, you need the right talent. Moving on to this comment from Senor Azazel, I feel like that partnership with AEW kind of hurts them because you consistently get Tony Khan crapping on them about, oh, I'm paying for my advertisement, blah, blah, blah. I understand that notion. Tony was definitely playing a heel in that. He was meant to be the douchebag billionaire coming into the company. You could argue whether or not it worked or not. I'd say they were entertaining segments, but yeah, you need there to be some level of payback. You need there to be some level of follow through for those to work. And I don't think we necessarily got them. But that said, Kenny Omega was Impact champion for several months and it boosted their ratings quite a bit. So I do see how there was good that came out of that relationship, but I think there could have been more. But that's a different conversation for a different day. ABC getting the win, still tag team champions. And while I'm looking forward to what comes next for them, I am very excited to say they are still the tag team champions of this company. Moving on, we had a backstage bit where Steve Macklin was hyping up the Rascals when they are then ambushed by Speedball Mike Bailey and Trent Seven. Referees prevent the brawl from happening, but this is a follow-up of what was on the pre-show tonight as the Rascals kind of cheated, kind of played dirty as Steve Macklin got involved in their matchup and then made Speedball tap out. We talked about this before we got on air, Matt. It definitely feels like they're waiting for Nick Nemeth to come back to TNA. He is in Japan right now, having just won the global championship in New Japan Pro Wrestling against David Finlay. Good for Nick Nemeth. Bravo. I do think his absence was felt on this pay-per-view, but granted that this was only an Impact Plus event, and they're probably building towards a bigger match for him in a few weeks. I'm not too upset with it, especially I'm not going to complain if he brings that global championship into the Impact Zone.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head on that one for sure.
Yeah. Moving on, we have a cluster of madness. I didn't hate it. I thought it was brutal. Yeah, we'll get into your hatred in a second. As the Monster PCO takes on the Monster Khan. I don't dislike Khan. I remember watching the Ascension in NXT and having high hopes for them, and then they got buried as soon as they got to the main roster in WWE. But I still saw opportunity with those two guys. And while we haven't seen Victor anywhere, we have seen Khan in TNA now for a while, part of the design. And that didn't end well for Diener last week, but it did set up for Khan to try and establish himself as a monster here in TNA. This match did not go long. This was a pretty quick match. Khan met PCO on the ramp to start the match. PCO took him to the ring, and they go corner to corner essentially. There was an attempt for PCO to dive out on the Khan, but Khan struck him down and then chokeslammed him onto the apron. PCO pops right back up with a clothesline. They brawl until Khan hits him with the chair, getting the DQ. Khan then continued beating down PCO after the match and then threw the timekeeper, the poor timekeeper. I'm being serious, guys. If you were not a wrestler tonight, you are not safe still. It does not matter. Anybody was free grabs. I'm sure there were some fines that are going to be sent out, but that poor timekeeper got ragdolled by Khan.
Real quick, before we move on to that, I just want to say, number 2 thing that TNA needs to invest in, get a bet. Oh, I was like, what was popping up? Get a better ring bell, because that was so annoying to hear, and I don't blame Khan at all for destroying the ring boy, the ring bell boy.
Yeah, no, that was rough. PCO then choked Khan and sends him over the ropes. PCO flies out to tackle him. PCO goes with a chair up the ramp, but Khan gains control and traps PCO's hand in the entranceway before snapping him with the chair across the neck. PCO lets out a huge roar, but Khan disappeared. It was fine. The highlight was, of course, PCO's dive from the top rope onto the apron that Khan dodged, and damn, did PCO really land rough. That was a hard spot to see. It's a classic for him at this point. It is vintage PCO to take from Michael Cole, but this was fine. I don't want to rag on these two guys because they did get brutal. They were beating each other with chairs, but this felt like this was entirely made to set up what will be a no DQ match between these two guys at probably the next premium live event. I am hesitant to say we're going to get Monsters Ball, although I wouldn't be shocked if that's what they give us, but I like saving Monsters Ball for truly vicious matchups. But who knows? We'll see.
Isn't Monsters Ball, has that ever been a one-on-one? Because it's usually like multi-man. It has been one-on-one.
It has been one-on-one. I can think of Jeff Hardy versus Abyss at one point. Yes, there have been one-on-one Monsters Balls.
So I hated this match. I love PCO. I love him. Seeing him in Madison Square Garden and Tama Tonga almost killing him and me, screaming explicitives to Tama Tonga, and I don't think I've hated anyone more in wrestling in any given moment than then. But you sold PCO's entrance. It was great. The Frankenstein, the black and white, it was fantastic. The match started, and my thought going into this match is like, okay, Khan. I had the same feelings about Khan as you did about, in NXT and WWE. And I think as a transition name out of WWE, I've got my WWE name that I can't legally use. What can I use that is close enough? I think Khan is great. But at the same time, I'm like, what can Connor from the Ascension do in wrestling in 2024? He's in TNA. This feels like an old trope of TNA to just sign anybody that's former WWE and put him in a spot. And I think this was a terrible example. And there was a good example tonight, but this was a terrible example for me personally. And again, I've been following TNA, have not been watching it. So this is the first time I've seen this guy in years. I thought it was bad. All of it was bad. The only actual wrestling move besides, the crazy PCO, dive you talked about was, I'm going to name a move now. I'm going to invent the name of a move. Was the, you ready? You ready?
Yeah, go for it. Bring it.
Was the windmill clothesline to the outside.
Okay.
When they both go over the rope together. So
look at that. We're trendsetters here at the Mark It Down podcast. We're naming moves out of nowhere. All right, windmill clothesline, trademark. We're putting it on. We're putting it on a T-shirt, and if not a T-shirt, we're gonna put it on a bumper sticker. But no, I do agree. I do want to clarify because, like you said, you haven't really been watching. He has been around for a while. He's not really a new sign. He's a relatively new signing, but he's not a new signing. He's been partnered up with Diener and for a while Alan Angels in the design. I think there is a role in professional wrestling for the heavy. Like in AEW, for example, Jake Hager is that guy. Do I ever care about seeing Jake Hager on his own at this point? No. I don't need to see Jake Hager do anything on his own. But do I mind seeing Jake Hager as the heavy in a group like anything Jericho is doing? No, because you need those guys to look imposing, hit their spots, and then when you want the baby face to overcome a challenge, he's that guy. He's the in-between to the main event guy. And for a while, that was working with Khan in the design. He was the heavy for Diener. He was the heavy for the leader. Yeah, in a group. So do I need to see him on his own? No. But considering they have split up the design, which unfortunately, in my opinion, was necessary, that group was not really working anymore. I don't mind them attempting to do something with Khan. You're only going to know if a talent can take off if they get a shot. I think a good example of that in TNA/Impact was Big Bill when he was W. Morrissey in TNA. I will credit Impact, I will credit TNA with revitalizing Big Bill in a way that AEW didn't for a very long time. They stumbled with Big Bill, but in TNA, they knew how to work him. And he was a guy that to many was washed when he got to TNA. The end of his WWE run, I know for a fact I didn't really care if I ever saw him again, but TNA really made me care about him again. So I'm never going to be mad at the attempt at trying to make something work. I don't think Khan is going to work, at least not in the role they might anticipate for him. But being involved in a potential Monsters Ball match with PCO is, I think, going to do, at the very least, give him credit for, wow, this guy could do some hardcore stuff. So as long as he loses, as long as PCO looks good, as long as Khan gets a good spot out of it, I'm okay with this in theory. But go ahead.
Well said. Two more thoughts, and then I don't have anything else to say about this match. One, I'm glad they got rid of this group, the design, because they already have the system, and those sound way too similar.
Well, so initially it was Violence by Design. And it was Eric
yes, I know them.
But then when they kicked Eric out of the group because he was going back to WWE and Diener took over, it became just the design, and he was the designer. Okay. So it was different. It was different, but I get the names are very similar.
So good explanation that makes me dislike it less. But the last thought of this match, it's like, how did you mess up that zip tie spot? It's like you zip tied him in the wrong spot, and PCO had to pretend that his hand was zip tied, which wasn't even really necessary to begin with. But I digress. Yeah. Like I said, hated this match. Love PCO.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that totally fair. I'm not going to argue with you on any of that. We're just trying to educate here at the Market Down podcast. But going to the comments, our new friend Senor Azazel saying, well, the thing that made Khan feel meh is that they had him eat the pin consistently. It's true. Like I said, he was used to protect Diener while still looking imposing. That was his role, and this is definitely the transition. I don't know they're going to stick that landing, but we'll see. Azazel also loves how adamant you are, Matt, about your displeasure with Khan. Hey, we tell it like it is here. We love professional wrestling here at the Market Down podcast. I know Matt is a big guy on the indie scene. He goes to as much wrestling as he can. We love everything, whether it's WWE, AEW, TNA, New Japan, Ring of Honor, your local indie, whatever it is, we are looking to enjoy ourselves. So the few times that we don't like something, we got to talk about it. We got to acknowledge it.
I've overall enjoyed this show. And like I said,
absolutely,
I went to a TNA show, Impact show last year. This is the first thing I've seen of TNA since. So I appreciate all the knowledge that you, James, and our viewers are giving me. And as far as quick what's it called, plug, as far as indie shows are concerned, I will be at NYWC tomorrow night for their biggest show of the year, the Psycho Circus out on Long Island. Tickets are still available, so definitely buy them. And if you go, and you see me, definitely say hi. I'd love to talk to you.
Hell yeah. We love a cheap plug here at the Market Down podcast. And then just finishing up with Azazel's latest comment, Big Bill should have stayed in TNA, seeing how they've used him, just sticking him with Ricky Starks.
I agree.
I agree to a point because I think Big Bill had a higher ceiling in TNA, but I can't argue. Like, look, he became an AEW tag team champion. TNA never put a title on him, and maybe they didn't because they felt he wasn't long for the company, but AEW did put a title on him. And I thought he was very entertaining with Ricky Starks. Is that a tag team I want to see continue for much longer? No. I would love to see Bill be let loose and be a singles guy and highlight, because I thought he's had some bangers in during this tag team title run. But time will tell. I am not giving up on how he's being treated in AEW yet.
Hey, real quick, has he had a match with Lance Archer yet? I
don't believe so.
I wouldn't mind some big meaty men matches. I know we're talking about TNA, and we'll get back to that, but like Big Bill and Lance Archer, or Big Bill and what's his name, the Machine Brian Cage.
Yep. No, I am all for that. You'll never hear me say no to big meaty men slapping each other's meat. But moving on, we're going to go away from the big meaty men slapping each other's meat, and we're going to go to the beefy women slapping each other's meat.
Big beefy gals.
Big beefy gals, as the Knockouts World Tag Team Championship were defended by the Decay against the former champions MK Ultra. So I'm going to be very honest with you, Matt. These are two tag teams that do have a lot of chemistry. They are very dark teams. MK Ultra consisting of Killer Kelly and Masha Slamovich, taking on the Decay's Rosemary and Jessica. I know what I'm in for with these matches because they're going to be good. They're going to be a little more hard-hitting than your typical Knockouts match. The only problem is, and I keep saying I know what I'm going to get, we've gotten some variation of this match at least 4 or 5 times in the last year and a half.
Oof.
Year and a half. We've had, now granted, the Decay have gone through some changes. Rosemary was initially teaming with Taya Valkyrie. Then the Decay turned into the Death Dolls, as Jessica with a K was her character, and Rosemary went by her alias, her alter ego, her very alive alter ego. And then we've had MK Ultra as champions. We've had the Decay as champions. They've traded the belts back and forth in some shape, form, or another. And I am a huge fan of MK Ultra.
Same.
I think they are incredible wrestlers. I think they are tough ladies, tough superstars. Not gender in here. They are just tough superstars, and I love seeing them. And I do enjoy seeing the Decay. I don't want to see this match again for a very long time. For a very, very long time. I've gotten everything I'm going to get out of it. And quite frankly, even though I love MK Ultra, I'm going to spoil it for you guys. MK Ultra won the match, regaining the tag team titles. I was a little disappointed because I would love to see Masha Slamovich. I would love to see Killer Kelly going for the Knockouts World Championship at some point or another. Masha's already had a couple of chances. I don't know that Kelly has, but I think they're so good. I think they're so great that just leaving them in the tag team division is doing them a little bit of a disservice. But granted, that Knockouts tag team division is sparse right now. They really need to grab some talent for that division. So I understand the desire to split that up and to keep going back and forth because there's not much alternative. But I don't want to sound like a big Debbie Downer. The match was good. The match was, like I said, these guys have chemistry. Masha and Havoc duking it out as Rosemary and Kelly go to the outside. The end seeing Rosemary going for a spear as Masha counters it into a snowplow and then pinning Rosemary for the 1-2-3. There were some fun spots in this match, Killer Kelly and Rosemary, Killer Kelly being on top of Rosemary and them just kind of like grinding their heads into one another was a nice, creepy spot. There was good stuff, but I'm worn out from it. Maybe you have a more fresh take on it because I've been here already, but what did you think of this match?
Yeah, no, I definitely have a different, more fresh take. Again, like I said, haven't seen anything in Impact TNA for a while, so I'm aware of all 4 of these ladies. especially Masha. Like I
Yeah.
see her in GCW all the time. Got to see her win the World Championship in person, which was awesome.
Is she still the GCW champion?
That's we can go into that another time.
Fair enough.
The short answer is no. She should have been champ longer, and then we can discuss that further elsewhere.
Fair enough.
So I'm aware of all 4 of these women, but not so much. I don't think I've ever actually seen. I've seen them all wrestle. I've never seen either team wrestle as a team before.
Fair enough.
So it was a good match. It was fresh for me, and yeah, you kind of hit all the notes that I had for that match specifically. I didn't know the 2 women. They came out afterwards. The other team that's kind of involved in the storyline, and that was the first time tonight while I was watching where I'm like, I have no idea who these people are. Like everybody else I knew or had seen wrestle before.
Yeah,
the other 2 gals, no idea.
Well, those 2 ladies being Jody Threat and Danny Luna. Danny Luna being a part of Subculture. After the match, after Masha pins Rosemary and MK Ultra are celebrating with their new tag team championships, they then rock havoc with the titles and then begin to stomp on the 2 former champions. This brings out Danny Luna and Jody Threat to make the save. MK Ultra then retreated. Danny Luna and Jody Threat are a relatively new tag team. They've both been in singles for a while. Like I said, Danny Luna had been part of Subculture. That is a British tag team.
I know that. Yeah. Real quick, the girl that's in Subculture, did she go by a different name?
No, she's always been Danny Luna. She's always been Danny Luna. But they're definitely treating her as her own star, especially because Subculture can't be with TNA currently. I think they're dealing with a combination of injury and visa issues. So maybe we'll get them soon. Maybe we will get them soon, but we shall see. Senior Azazel saying TNA needs some more women for their women's tag team division. Yes, big agreement with you on that one. And Masha should be the next person to take Jordan's spot whenever she leaves. I'm not going to argue with you. We've already seen that matchup, and Jordan did come out on top. But I think both women are in a new place right now, and I would love to see whether or not Jordan sticks around or not. I think Masha, it's a matter of when, not if, for her winning the Knockouts World Championship.
Agreed. And if we're not right, I hope we are right, because she's fantastic.
Yes, absolutely. Incredible talent. We then go backstage as the system are discussing their game plan. Moose says that they cannot throw in the towel under no circumstances. I'm going to get into the towel stuff later. Moving back in the ring, we have a one-on-one match, a grudge match, a very one-sided grudge match between Josh Alexander and Simon Gotch, a new to the company Simon Gotch. So I will give you some backstory on this, Matt. Sure. Josh Alexander was recently on Alan Angel's new talk show, his new TNA talk show that, it's part of the show.
Gotcha.
And they were getting back and forth. Alexander talking about wanting to go for the world championship, his goals under this new TNA era. And eventually this brings on a very angry Simon Gotch, who the next week attacks Alexander after his match, coming in through the crowd, wearing a face mask.
Yeah.
Just really brutally attacks Alexander. On the next episode of Alan Angel's talk show, he explains that 5 years ago, Josh and Gotch had a one-on-one match on the Indies. And after that match, that same night, Josh was offered his TNA contract by Scott D'Amore. Gotch believes it was because of his match with Josh that Josh was noticed and that Scott was willing to offer him a contract to be a part of TNA, to be a part of Impact. And he owes all of his success, his TNA world title, his Impact world title runs, to Simon Gotch and that match they had, while Simon has been struggling and clawing to get onto TV. So that's where this grudge started. So the heels are meant to be delusional. So I don't mind the delusional heel saying something a little out of pocket, a little off color. But this led to I'll be honest, I'm not a huge Simon Gotch guy. He wasn't my guy when he was part of the Vaudevillains in WWE. His most famous contribution, as far as I'm concerned, to professional wrestling is ruining everybody's YouTube algorithm by mentioning Enzo Amore. Oh God, you have no idea how much I want to ask Enzo about that. But anyway, I was surprised by how much I enjoyed this match.
Same.
It was hard hitting. They presented Gotch as a very nice thumbs up. I don't know how we did that. Is that something we do here? What was when producer boy is not here? They presented Gotch as a very capable and imposing threat to the walking weapon, Josh Alexander. Being a little bit taller than Alexander, being a little bit buffer. I mean, he does.
He was buffer.
Well, here's the
Alexander?
thing. Here's the thing. Alexander's got a very cut physique. Gotch had a bigger physique that very clearly he's shrunken down a little bit. But he has a wider build as opposed to Alexander's sharper build, as far as I can point out. Alexander is pure muscle. Josh Alexander is pure muscle. I'm not taking anything away from how he looks. But Gotch had a brawlier build. So lots of hard-hitting back and forth. Strikes, chops, kicks, punches. These guys were laying into each other. Very strong style. We also got some good old-fashioned mat wrestling. We got some grapples, people, and I love the technical stuff. I am a technical bitch. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And these guys really delivered on that front. Eventually, though, as all things go in professional wrestling, it comes down to the professional wrestling moves. We got Gotch trapping Josh in a chokehold, using his headgear, his amateur wrestling headgear, using that to get him into a choke for his bulldog choke. Josh is able to escape and counters it into an ankle lock. He then hits a backbreaker followed by a vicious, C4 spike. Pile driver for the 1, the 2, and yes, the 3. I really, really, really enjoyed this match. So much so that I would actually like to see Gotch come back. I would like to see Gotch be a regular part of TNA if he's able to bring that level of intensity that he brought with Alexander. And granted, Josh is a physical opponent. He is going, whatever you give him, he's going to give right back to you. So he was a great talent for Gotch to face on this big stage of this premium live event. But I'm interested to see if Gotch can bring it to other opponents in the mid-card or elsewhere in TNA. Please tell me what you thought of the match. You seem to have been just as impressed by Gotch as I was, or at very least as impressed with this match as I was.
Yeah, no, you hit a lot of the things I was going to say. I would say, right off the bat, yeah, we're not a big Gotch guy, though I did really like the Vaudevillains. I thought it was odd that they won the NXT tag titles as opposed to Enzo and Cass, who were arguably a little bit more over. But this match I thought was very cool because, like you said, right off the bat, it started off with great grappling, and then we got into some hard-hitting action. It really spoke to what Gotch was saying. Like, you said he kind of sounded delusional, and in a way he was, but at the same time, considering how hard hitting and like how back and forth, and he's in this match, it's a very, very competitive match. Hey, there might be something to what he's saying here. He's taking it. And again, it's how many years later, and look how 5 years, how successful Alexander has come, and how Gotch is still like on his level. You know what I mean? It's not like one of those storylines where it's just like, oh, we had a really competitive match 5 years ago. I almost won. I bet I could take you out tonight. It's like, well, bro, I've been like world champion and you haven't done shit since then. That wasn't the case. And that was very, very interesting to me. So yeah, it would be cool to see Gotch again. I guess his tag partner, Matt, he's retired, right?
Well,
like he's just
no,
doing the commentary.
No, so he kind of indicated a little while ago that he might have been retiring, and then he went back on that. He has started to wrestle a little bit more. In fact, having wrestled in a tag team with Gotch on the Indies.
At House of Glory, yes.
Yes, at House of Glory. Gotta love the plug. At House of Glory fairly recently, and I think they're taking bookings as a tag team, so much so that I'm kind of anticipating a reunion in TNA.
I would not mind seeing that in TNA. It's funny. There's nothing I wanted to mention at some point tonight. I might as well do it now. I've noticed like there's guys that just are able to use their WWE names now. I guess WWE like kind of just like, we don't need to hold on to that copyright. Like it's not worth the time and money. I wonder when we could get an Aid in English back, if that's in the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I mean, it is possible. I wouldn't rule anything out. Some of the notables have been Santino Marella, who finally got it back. He did not have access to it for many years, and he finally got it back. To some degree, Khan, I think it is kind of a different name than what it, like, obviously Connor versus Khan is slightly different. But we are starting to see it a little bit more. I know the thumbs up is back. I don't know what this is, but it's a whole new world for me. But yeah, I don't know if it's just WWE is getting a little more forgiving with letting these guys trying to make somewhat of a name for themselves on the indies or just elsewhere without, being kind of dicks about it.
It might be money, just like bottom line thing.
Yeah, like, is it worth it for, like, no disrespect to Simon Gotch, but is he going to impact the bottom line for any company? Probably not. So why make an enemy out of a guy? Let him be himself. Let him be what is going to make him a little more money, put some more security on him. I'm all for it. Good on WWE if they are allowing this, and good on the talent for being aggressive about it if that's what they want. But moving on, we have a backstage confrontation as AJ Francis, formerly known as Top Dollar, confronts Rich Swann ahead of their match on Thursday. This has been an ongoing story for several weeks in TNA, essentially since Hard to Kill, as AJ Francis has had an issue with Joe Hendry, and their interactions have not been pleasant, but they have been funny. So go check out Joe Hendry's latest musical video, this time at AJ Francis's expense.
I was wondering if he was still in TNA. That was definitely a question I was going to ask at some point. I'm like,
who's that? Joe Hendry?
Joe Hendry, yes.
Oh, yeah. Joe Hendry is one of my favorite acts in TNA. He's so weird because he's so good that he could be world champion, but because he's a comedy act, they might want to keep him in the mid card. But so good, the crowd is always behind him, and he's a legit competitor. The guy's done some MMA fighting. He's always delivered in the ring. Sky's the limit as far as I'm concerned when it comes to Joe Hendry.
He looks good too.
Yeah, that he does. Moving on to what not our main event, but our TNA World Championship match. A no surrender rules match between the champion, Moose, and the former champion, Alex Shelley. I said to you, I texted you when we were watching this, I don't know why this wasn't the main event. I do get it, considering the caliber of talent that was in the main events and wanting to make that feel like a big deal. But I thought this match was excellent. I enjoyed it a lot. I was not crazy about the finish, which we'll get into, but I'm actually going to do something a little different. I'm not going to run everything down from the get-go, or I could run it down a little bit, but I'm not going to give my opinion first. I want to hear your opinion first. I'm trying to be giving in this in this relationship, but I will run it down just a little bit. No personal thoughts. Just Shelley immediately ambushes. Just to clarify, everybody, the rules of a no surrender match: no DQ, no count out. The only way there could be any form of DQ is if the cornermen, in this case, Alex Shelley's cornermen being Kevin Knight and Kushida, and Moose's cornermen, the rest of the system, Brian Myers, Eddie Edwards, and Alicia, if they physically got involved in any capacity, well, not any capacity, some capacity, it would lead to a DQ and a forfeiture of the belt. The only way to lose this match is if your cornerman throws in the towel for you. I think it's a very weird concept personally, but TNA has been thriving on their very unique styles of matchups. So I was open to it. The match starts with Alex Shelley ambushing Moose at the bell. Moose is favoring his left knee very early on, but he's still bringing the pain to Alex Shelley. Shelley goes for chair shots. Myers is throwing the towel away. He doesn't even want to consider throwing in the towel for their leader Moose, his tag team partner Moose, things start to get a little brutal here as Shelley goes for the chair shot, but Eddie Edwards yanks the chair away because he made no physical contact with Alex Shelley. It does not count as a DQ. Shelley takes this personally, and he puts Moose's hand in the ring post in in that gear that helps tighten the ropes. He puts Moose's hand in it and twists, he bends, he stretches, and it made me gag. It was awful and amazing in the same way.
He also grabbed, I think he had a wrench too, right?
Yeah, he did use a wrench to really torque that. Oh my God.
Because I've seen that spot before, and it's always just kind of like, alrighty, but that wrench really pushed, whatever that tool he had really put it over.
It was a wrench, and it was nasty. Alicia then has to get Myers to back down as he's trying to get involved and throw the towel in. Moose then unloads with punches to the head. He slams a chair against Alex Shelley's hand. He has Alex Shelley's hand in the turnbuckle and then just whacks it with a chair. He then kicks it. It was very brutal. Alex retrieves a kendo stick and just goes to town on Moose's leg while he's tied up in the ropes. Eddie throws in a trash can. And guys, this wasn't the normal trash can spot that we're used to. Both men go up top while the trash can is not on its side, but open side down, bottom up. Ooh, boy. This leads to Alex Shelley biting Moose up top and then slamming Moose right on the top of it. It was a rough spot to see. Moose's back has got to be in agony right now. Alex Shelley then applies a figure four to Moose, who reverses it, applies the paint on him, and then hits him with a kendo stick, just whacking away on Shelley's knees. They then prop up a table in the corner as both men are going limp. Moose nearly runs into it, having missed Shelley for a spear, but he's able to save himself. And then Shelley, who may be a babyface, but will never hesitate about being a dick, hits the dick itself and low blows Moose. And then he applies the Border City stretch. Brian Myers is then able to slip on brass knucks to Moose, who's able to sort of just whack Shelley in the head. I like that. I like that it was a light enough punch that it justifies him letting go of the move without actually getting knocked out. Moose then goes for another spear, but misses and then runs through the table. Kushida then slides a chain into Shelley. Shelley applies the Border City stretch with the chain around Moose's mouth. Kevin Knight then runs inside and launches off of Kushida. This was actually a really cool spot to take out the System, who were on the apron. Shelley then scares Alicia out of the ring, but turns into a massive spear for Moose as Kushida is forced to watch on. Moose then lands another spear, this time with the chain wrapped around his shoulder, going chain first into Shelley's abdomen. And as he's about to go for a third spear, Kushida's on the apron and throws in the towel. This doesn't stop Moose, though, as he still goes for the spear anyway, just leveling Alex Shelley. I've got lots of thoughts on this match. I want to hear what you got. I liked it, but tell me what you thought.
Sure. Yeah, no, I liked the match a lot. A lot of cool spots, a lot of good spots. Everyone did their job well. I like the ending. I feel like it makes sense. You've got Moose, his finisher is the spear. He's doing the spear multiple times, and on top of that, he's adding the chain to the spear to make it more devastating. And by the way, props to whoever had the chain. Like, they put like a little, like one of those things where you can latch it together, because I can't.
Thank God. How many times do we see them not able to wrap a chain properly? This isn't a shot at anyone in particular. It's not as easy as it looks because of the weight of a chain, but somebody finally figured out how to make this work.
I'm sure you're probably thinking the same thing I am. Davey Richards wrapping his foot around the chain, kicking Kevin Steen.
That was rough. I'm also thinking Adam Cole in AEW. That was a rough spot. It did not look good.
It happens.
Yeah, I don't blame anybody. But like, we could just be honest. Some spots don't look good through no fault of anybody in particular. But TNA made this work.
Yeah, this was definitely satisfying. I can understand why maybe you didn't like the ending. Like that's not the kind of finish you were looking for. I get it. I also, it is really tough to position this in this spot in the card. Like I was thinking about it. Like I understand why they wanted Mustafa Ali in the main event. He's a new signing. You don't have Nick Namath there. You want to showcase this guy, and what better way to do it than this? There's a couple issues there. Like one, this world title match that we're talking about right now was a stipulation match. It's not just like a standard one-on-one. So that kind of puts it and elevate. Not only is that it's the world title, but that it's a stipulation kind of elevates it even more. You can't have it be first on the card because you have a number one contenders match. And the other thing, it's like you can't justify me personally. If say this was Destination X, then yeah, you could put the X Division match in the X Division title match in the main event spot, or if it was the 20-year anniversary of the last time that the X Division title was in the main event match. Unfortunately, it was 19 years, or if it was the same event, like if this was Unbreakable. None of those things aligned, and that's why it's not the end of the world, but it just seems so odd that this match is in this spot and there's two matches after it.
I almost would have started the show with this match if it's not going to main event.
Again, that was a thought I had, but then also the fact that there's like a number one contender. I mean, you could do the number one contender after, I guess. But
I'm going to argue that the number one contenders match kind of spoiled the winner of this match. Eric Young is a babyface. I wasn't expecting him to go against Alex Shelley. I was expecting him to go against the heel Moose. So if you have the championship match first, yeah, maybe you're spoiling the number one contenders match, but I'd rather that be spoiled for me than the world title outcome.
Good point. Good point.
But I do agree with you. It was a weird placement of this. I understand the thought process of how the main event became the main event. I really do. But I think it was a disservice to this matchup.
Agreed. It was hard to justify. It's not the end of the world, but still hard to justify.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But just in terms of me with this matchup, I kind of touched on the points while I was reviewing it. That turnbuckle spot with the wrench was awful in the best way and just ouchy, wouchy. The table spot was good. I really enjoyed the brass knuckle spot. Like I said, I like that it was just a whack, something that's definitely going to disorient you, but not at the same time knock you out as brass knuckles should. So I thought that was a good spot. My only nitpick is the finish. Considering the brutality that was in this matchup, considering the hard-hitting spots that were in this matchup, I think the spear spot, especially as you have Alex Shelley calling out to Kushida, don't do it. Don't do it. And then he does it after the second one. Again, I understand. I get it. That is a hard move that is going to do a lot of damage to your insides. It could break your ribs. It could really hurt you. I get Kushida being a friend in that moment. It just, considering what we had seen previously in the matchup, a third spear was hard for me to say that's the finish. It wasn't bad. And I think if we didn't get some of the earlier spots in the match, I would have been fine with it.
I hear what you're saying, and I somewhat agree. I would say the way you're describing it, it reminds me of Johnny Gargano versus Tommaso Ciampa in the last man standing match. It's like that was the finish. That was
exactly
less devastating than everything else before.
That's absolutely. I hope I was able to properly convey that. Yes, it not bad. Just in comparison, it felt a little flat in comparison, but still an overall great matchup.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree, but I definitely hear what you're saying, and like your opinion, like your thought process makes sense.
Yes. Thank you. But very eager to see what we're going to get out of this next. Moose versus Eric Young should be a very strong title match, if not necessarily the strongest title program, but time will tell, and I'm willing to give that a look. We then have an introduction as George Iceman introduces a surprise appearance by Ash by Elegance, also known or formerly known as Dana Brooke. She takes a seat ringside after having made her debut in TNA last night, taking on a talent that I'm not really familiar with. She was definitely the jobber of the week. But this is a precursor to the TNA Knockouts World Title match as world champion Jordynne Grace defends against Giselle Shaw. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, Matt. I was very conflicted with this matchup because I am a fan of both of these women. I think they are great talent, and I have seen, because I've been as long as I've been covering TNA, I've basically been covering the arrival of Giselle Shaw, her rise in TNA and Impact, and now getting this one-on-one title match on a pay-per-view. Not her first title match, mind you, but her latest one after having won the Ultimate X match at Hard to Kill. Jordynne Grace is someone I have a massive amount of respect for, and after becoming such a hot commodity after her appearance in the Royal Rumble last month for WWE in January, I didn't know what made sense here. Giselle Shaw has been cutting her teeth, has been getting better week in and week out, and she has been making changes to not only her game, but with her character, having cut out the Shantaraj, as she's been calling them, Savannah Evans and Jay Vidal, to say that I'm trying to be more serious here because you guys haven't been delivering for me. I felt that this would have been a great time to finally, pull the trigger, put the title on her. But Jordynne Grace, again, being this hot commodity, do you want to take the title off her this soon after that appearance in the Rumble? I think they had kind of booked themselves in a no-win situation as far as making me happy, because no matter what, I was going to be upset for somebody. But I did really think this was a great matchup. I thought both women had some impressive spots, doing a lot of fighting on the outside, doing a lot of fighting on the apron. There was a massive Spanish fly that Giselle hit from the apron to the outside onto Jordynne Grace. I felt my kidneys shifting in that as that move was hit. Grace hitting a fallaway slam on the floor also earlier. Just so much brutality on that outside. They did a lot of trading back and forth. Shaw, the ending coming with Shaw going for a super kick and then going for a top rope cutter that Grace is able to evade, and then hits the Juggernaut driver for the 1, the 2, and the 3. I thought this was a good Knockouts championship match. I think both women have had better matchups in the past. I think they've both delivered a little bit higher match quality, but this was far from a slouch. This, like I said, a very brutal matchup considering what they had accomplished. And I am rooting for Giselle Shaw to get that title down the line. But I am very happy for Jordynne Grace's reign to continue. Matt, what did you think?
Well, I'll start from the beginning because I don't want to sell her short. Ash by Elegance. Never been a fan of Dana Brooke. I thought she was awful when she started NXT. She did improve quickly, but I think she hit the ceiling very fast as well. Like, you know what I mean? Like, she got better and then she just stopped.
I'll address Ash after you're done talking about the matchup. I do want to say that after the matchup, Ash having left the ringside, rather upset that Jordynne won, seeming to have an issue with the winner of the matchup going back up the ramp. I think it's just a matter of time. It's going to probably be Jordynne's next feud, Dana Brooke. I'm sorry, Ash by Elegance.
Yeah, I'm going to say some nice things about Ash by Elegance.
There you go.
Love the name. I think it's great. I think people that were saying, like, oh, she's a ripoff of Timeless Toni Storm. It's like, bro, she's clearly like a model. She's a fragrance. Like, she just happened to get a haircut that was sort of similar to just Tony. I think that was coincidental. I don't think that was.
They're classy blondes. That's really where the connection starts and ends, as far as I'm concerned. Like, Tony is Looney Tunes, while Ash is, like you said, a debutante in some ways.
To be fair, either her hair grew really fast or she got hair extensions, so she made a change. I think that's great. Good for her. Yeah. I don't really know this her concierge guy.
He's only been around on TV for the last few weeks. Quite frankly, he's got it. He's going to be a big part of this gimmick succeeding. If it does succeed, I think he's going to be a big part about making this work.
Okay, because I immediately thought, like, I felt like Carmella's sommelier was better.
No,
But,
give this guy some time. He's in my opinion, he's really knocking it out of the park.
okay, sure, I can do that because yeah, he wasn't like super offensive or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, both these gals. I think this is classic case of big beefy gals going at it, and good for them. When Jordan Grace came ringside, there was a fan with a sign, kind of like one of those, kind of like a little bit of a cringe sign.
I saw it, but I didn't see what it said. What did it say?
It said, like, Jordan, be my mommy, or will you be my mommy? And
she acknowledged it too.
To her credit, she came over and she gave him a little, like, like a little, like, you
grab
on both arms.
Yeah,
no, it was cool. Like, and I appreciated that. Like,
a little, you go, champ.
yeah. She's a baby face, and
I love Jordan. I've met her. She's a sweetheart, and she's a very humble person, in my opinion. So I think she knows how to play with the crowd.
Cool. And like I said, this match was good. We've probably seen better from both. Number 3 on my list of things that TNA should invest more money on. Correct me if I'm wrong, but she had different music when she was in WWE for the Rumble, right?
Grace?
Yes.
I'll be honest, I'd have to go back and check. I'm
pretty sure her music was awesome when she was in the Rumble, and this music stunk. And so TNA gets some better music with this new money. Any thoughts on the match? Giselle had a rough corkscrew from the top rope, but she definitely made up for it with the Spanish Fly that you talked about.
Yeah.
Later on, you said the top rope. She went for the top rope cutter. Was it a top rope or was it a springboard?
It might have been a springboard, but I still think it was from the corner. I still think it was from the corner, but I'm not entirely sure now. I'd have to go back.
I think I'm thinking of a different spot then, because it definitely, what I was thinking was not at the corner. But
Gotcha.
Regardless, really good on both these. I forgot to mention next year's Rumble. Who knows if we can get another TNA person? I would love to see PCO. That's my pick.
Oh, that would be fun. That would be fun, yeah.
So, and I think Giselle, they even said in this match, she's only been with the company for 2 years. I don't know how many times she's challenged for the title. You said she's challenged before.
Yeah, a couple times.
Okay, so, I mean, that could be part of her storyline. Like, it's taken me X amount of times, but I'm still here. I'm still hungry. I'm still ready to challenge. Like, I've grown, and I think it's inevitable. And I think she's solid. Like, I think, like, I don't want to really compare them because they are so different. But, like, I feel like, and I don't want to get, like, ruffle any feathers. But
if it's anybody from AEW, let's just skip over it.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, no, I know where you're going with it. I know. But no, you know what? That's not fair for me to say. I understand who you're trying to compare her to because of the similarities, but I think they're such different talent.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I don't want to necessarily go there if that's okay. But
no, that's why I asked. That's like I didn't, and again, I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers.
No, of course not. And all of this is complimentary to Giselle. It's just I think we're comparing in some ways apples and oranges.
Yeah.
But yes, great matchup between these two women, and I am sure the Knockouts division is in safe hands as long as they're both in this division moving forward. But the division is a little thin right now. We've had some losses in the last year or so between Trinity going, Deonna Purrazzo going, Taya Valkyrie going. We've had a lot of loss. Hopefully, we're going to get some replenishing sooner than later.
I'm actually shocked they went with Dana Brooke. I would have gone with Tennille Dashwood, FKA, Emma. Like, I think
she's been with the company before. She had a great run as part of the Inspiration in Impact, and I would love to see her back. We at the pod have been saying for a while now that we think both Tennille and her partner, I'm so sorry, her partner Madcap Moss would be a great fit for TNA. I think Madcap would actually be a great grab. I think he'd be able to really show himself off in the company. And I think Tennille would absolutely be an instant contender for the Knockouts title.
And I want to see her be champ. Like, I don't understand how that's another conversation for another day about her. But so that's all I got on the. I think I covered everything I wanted to say on the women's match. So Give us more.
Let's go. We're going to the main event, the actual main event, as the X Division Championship is on the line as 10-time, you heard me, 10-time champion Chris Sabin defends against the debuting Mustafa Ali. They were in a rough spot with this match. Hold on, let's see. Senor Azazel in the comments saying, I didn't like Emma. Felt like she phoned it in most of the time, but that's just me. So I understand where you're coming from. She never really had a moment to highlight herself, but I also think that's sort of the character she was portraying. It's not that she was necessarily phoning it in, but her character always looked very disinterested. She always looked like she's better than where she is. And that's not because of TNA. They were even kind of doing that a little bit with her heel stuff in WWE as well. She's not my favorite talent. She's just not. But I recognize how good she is and what she brings to the table. And I think she's too good to not be somewhere. Whether that's in WWE, whether even NXT, WWE, or TNA, or Ring of Honor for Tony Khan's other company, or even AEW. I think she belongs somewhere. But I think TNA is the place where instantly put the title on her.
I was shocked she wasn't in AEW the first time she got released from WWE.
Yep. Let's see. There's plenty of time to sign some talent. Always room for talent. Always room for Jello. Before we get into the matchup, actually, I do want to say there was a backstage promo as Jake Something cut a promo talking about the importance, the significance of the X Division Championship main eventing a pay-per-view. He says 2024 is the year that he takes the X Division title. I'm a big fan of Jake Something. He's definitely a different mold for the X Division. I know we don't talk about it, that it's all typically smaller guys, and whenever a big guy shows up, it feels a little different, but it's just true, it is. But he has a fast-paced style. He's an absolute stud as far as I'm concerned, and I think he can keep up with almost anybody. So I'd be interested to see him going for the X Division title some point in the future.
He's a name I keep hearing. This was the first time I've seen him, so I don't have an opinion on him yet.
Yeah, I was always kind of whatever about him in his first run with Impact. He left for a while. I saw him at House of Glory firsthand, and I was just amazed by the guy. If it looked like he found an intensity, it looked like he found a drive and a hunger that really kind of like boosted him up. And then he's been implementing that now in this new run with TNA, and I'm all for it. I have long said TNA is a place for career rehabilitation. And that's not just for guys that have come from other places or like WWE or AEW or wherever. I think it also applies to guys that were in TNA. Joe Henry's first run with TNA was mid as hell, unfortunately for him. It was not a great run. This second run, he's really found his footing. And I think the same is being said now of Jake Something, who didn't have a terrible run the first time, but nothing of true value. I think they're really starting to position him as something important in this new run. So more for TNA for giving second chances, bully for them. But going to the main event, we have a hot crowd who is ready for a debuting Mustafa Ali. Mustafa Ali. Thank you, sir. TNA had a tough battle here because the crowd did not want to boo the clearly heel Mustafa Ali. Ali having appeared in several backstage vignettes over the last month or so with a very political character. He comes across as a politician, with his campaign ads, with his sponsorships of matches, and just his overall promo delivery. He comes across as a political figure, and I think it works for him. But the crowd does not want to boo this character. Despite having come to the ring flanked by security guards in suits and sunglasses and wearing earpieces. Yeah, no, it was great stuff. This crowd was very pro Ali. They were not anti-Sabin, but they were just very, very pro Ali. The crowd's hot. They lock up to begin. Sabin is backed into the corner. They trade arm drags and reach a stalemate with Ali taking a headlock takedown. Both men going for the double drop kick, hitting another stalemate. Ali then teases being in Sabin's head, which he has been storyline-wise for the last several weeks, really getting under Sabin's skin. Sabin then applies the headlock onto the mat. Sabin throws right jabs until Ali slides out. Ali pulls Sabin into the ropes, but Sabin does a head scissor takedown from the apron. This was a great spot. Great spot. Very quick, very fluid, and it sends Ali back first onto the floor. Back inside, Ali hits a 450 splash onto Sabin's arm, and that really is where the damage started going to Sabin, where the match started to turn a little bit. Great, quick 450 splash from the top rope onto that arm. I don't know how Ali didn't bang the hell out of his knees hitting that. Ali then hits an STF and stomps on Sabin's arm. Sabin is then able to pull out a German and trade various kicks before finally falling down. Chris goes up top, but Ali chops his chest. Sabin then counters with a tornado DDT for the cover, but doesn't get the pin, and then he applies a crossface as Ali is able to crawl out to the bottom rope. Sabin then shoves Ali off the turnbuckle, off the top turnbuckle that Ali propped himself on, and he's able to land on his feet. Ali then goes for a 450 splash, but rolls through when Sabin moves. Sabin sidesteps Ali and runs into the second turnbuckle full force. Sabin then drop kicks Ali out, and his personal security guards check on him. This then led to a very fun spot as Sabin does a crossbody, a high crossbody. He got some air, and he lands on top of two security guards. This then brings out your favorites, the Good Hands, as they're spotted on the ramp wearing Ali shirts. Ali and Sabin then trade kicks back inside. Sabin hits Skylar and Hotch from the apron. Ali then goes for the roll-up, but Sabin is able to kick out. Chris then goes for Mustafa with a clothesline from Hell, Michigan. I will always love that. I will always love that. If you're not aware, there is a Hell, Michigan on the map. I've been there. I have a hat from there, actually. I don't know. It pops me every time.
Is it a clothesline from Hell, Michigan hat?
I wish. No, it's just a Hell, Michigan hat, not the wrestling, just the place. Sabin then hits a cradle shock, and I thought this was going to be the 1-2-3, but Mustafa kicks out. This then led to. This is an example of it's the opposite of the world title match, where in my opinion, this was my favorite spot and the perfect way to end the match. As Ali is on the top rope, Sabin, who's a little frustrated, he's definitely got Ali in his head. Sabin rushes the turnbuckle, and Ali is able to counter and hit a rough, quick sunset flip powerbomb. This keeps Sabin on the floor long enough for Ali to hit a 450 splash and get the 1-2-3 to a massive pop. We now have our new X Division champion, Mustafa Ali, being the first man in TNA history to win the X Division championship in his first matchup. Great match, in my opinion. I'm still hesitant to say why this main evented over the world title match, but considering the gravity of this, something that became a TNA exclusive on social media, I'm happy to share it now. Mustafa Ali grabs a microphone and says that in 20 years of his career, this is his first major singles title ever. That's a big deal. This is a man who was in WWE. This is a man who was a highlight of the show he was on, whether it was 205 Live or SmackDown. They treated this man as a big deal, but they never put a title on him. And now in his first pay-per-view one-on-one main event, in his first match for the company, he wins his first singles title. Congratulations to Mustafa Ali. Long, well-deserved, well-earned in a good matchup. Matt, what did you think of this match?
I mean, yeah, you love to see it. It was a great match. And I mean, it's tough. I mean, when he was in WWE, he was supposed to win the North American Championship. And then they fired him a week or 2 weeks before the match.
Yep.
So this is this is full circle moment for him, I'm sure.
Yeah. Bravo.
Yeah, there was some great stuff. I mean, give me a sec. The turnbuckle whiplash, you mentioned that was awesome. The clothesline from Hell, Michigan, the cradle shock, everything, just terrific, and can't wait to see more. And it is, the match itself, it kind of like justified itself being in the main event. But it just at the time, like when you're in the world title match, you're just kind of like, what is going on? This is kind of wonky.
Yeah.
So again, it was not the worst thing in the world. And again, the match is great. So you love to see it, and you can't wait to see more. So
absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. One more question. I was trying to look this up, and this is another one with the WWE names. His real name isn't Mustafa Ali, but was he using that before WWE? He was. He
was using it on the Indies prior to his run in WWE. You got to remember, our first exposure to Ali in WWE was in the Cruiserweight Classic, where they had brought in a lot of indie talent. Cedric Alexander, Kota Ibushi, Zack Sabre Jr., Grand Metalik. These were all guys that were using the names that they had used elsewhere. And then when they realized that the crowd had grown attached to these stars, they were the ones that they had signed. Well, not all of them. Obviously not Ibushi, obviously not Zack Sabre Jr. But I think that's why he was able to hold on to it. And I think that's why, obviously, he's able to use it now.
Yeah, good for him. Good for him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I always preferred calling him Mustafa myself. But
I mean, in the beginning he was, and then he acknowledged it's Mustafa. And it's just one of those things that the rolling off the tongue is what makes it hard for me. But out of respect, I am doing my best. I promise, sir. If you're watching this one day, if we ever have you on the pod, I will do everything in my power to say it right. Or I'll just be a chicken shit and I'll just say Ali every time.
It was one slip up. You're good. You're good.
I'm on pins and needles though. But I really enjoyed the show for a secondary premium live event, for an Impact Plus event. I thought it delivered in a lot of ways. What was your favorite match of the night?
Good question. Definitely not PCO. One more, I should say, Khan. I mean, I really love some of those spots in the tag team match.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards the tag team match myself.
But the main event was pretty significant and very satisfying. So overall, a satisfying event. Glad I watched it. So
awesome. Always happy to have you here in the Gym Tag Zone with me. But yeah, guys, that was our show. This is. I will be covering, obviously, TNA next Thursday. We'll be covering TNA Impact next Thursday. If you're new to us, Senor Azazel, it was a pleasure to have you tonight. If you want to stick around, please hit like, hit subscribe. That way you'll be notified when we talk to you next week. We cover everything. We cover Raw. Oh, we do actually have one last comment from Senor Azazel. These are my picks for women for TNA to pick up. Hyen, Lainey Luck, Viva Van, Miranda Alizé, or Alex Garcia. I don't disagree with almost any of those picks. I've seen Viva Van in person. She is a great talent. Miranda Alizé, I've seen in a couple of matchups, and same thing with Alex Garcia. I'm not as familiar with Hyen, and I'm not as familiar with Lainey Luck. Unless is that all Viva Van? Are they all just different names for Viva Van?
I'm not familiar with any of those ladies, to be honest. Maybe I got to go to more indie shows, but at least I'll be at NYWC tomorrow night. So.
There you go. And we'll have some Mark It Down presence at House of Glory next weekend. Beyond that, but yeah, guys, this is the Mark It Down podcast. We cover Raw. We cover AEW Dynamite. We cover TNA Impact. We are trying to cover Friday Night SmackDown. It's coming soon, I promise. We're in an adjustment period. We cover every pay-per-view we can. We're going to start covering a little bit more New Japan. But we just love talking wrestling, and we love talking wrestling with you. So if you don't want to watch us here, or if you can't watch us here, but you need more of us, check us out on social media. We are putting out some funny stuff on Instagram. We like to put our opinions on X/Twitter. We do stuff sometimes, occasionally, every once in a while on Facebook. And we make the TikToks, as the kids say. We make them TikToks. So I'm James Gisanti. This is Matt Cascone. This is the Mark It Down podcast. And as always, please watch wrestling. Please watch TNA. And have a good night. There is no producer boy, but there is a James, and I'm going to take us out of here. Have a good night, everybody.
Night.